Thank you. We will continue from where we left. And I think I had just mentioned that we have now developed into a one-party de facto state after the, maybe not yet, but let me go back a little bit. Let's say that I've just arrived from the US, 1981 April. The 1981 April, 81 April, I'm looking for a job. I get a job with the Kenya Air Force. I get a job with Kenya Bureau of Standards, and I get a job with the Minister of Industry. So I go to the Minister of Industry. I start working in April, in August 1980, 81, August 81. So when I start working with the ministry, then I'm now starting to understand that we are in Maendeleo House. The Ministry of Industry had been taken to Maendeleo House. This is now Moi in his true colors, not yet, but he's going to get there. I've just gone a little bit back because I wanted to come and catch up to how he becomes a little bit more ruthless. I'm here now. Moi is a good man. We are working. He has created a lot of ministry because he's trying to do what we call in Kenya rewarding supporters, political supporters, people who had supported him well in 1978 are now to be supported. Some are to be brought into government. We have a lot of ministries. Like I'll give you an example. The ministry I'm working at, that is commerce and industry, but now it has been split. There is industry and there is commerce. Now these have become two ministries. That means more jobs for politicians. We have two ministers. There is a minister for commerce, there is a minister for industry, and they are separate ministries with their own budget. A permanent secretary, two assistant ministers, two assistant ministers. So you find now the government is stronger than the backbench because most of the people in government, when it comes to voting in parliament, then would vote with the government because they are government people. They work for the government. They are part of the executive because then ministers and assistant ministers would be members of parliament. Therefore, you find that now the NNE has been weakened. That was one style of weakening the opposition in parliament. But anyway, let's continue. 1982, then the coup attempt happens. The coup attempt happens on August 1st, and then I'm working for the Minister of Industry. That is Maendeleo House. The coup attempt happens. After the coup attempt happens, then there are a lot of skirmishes, but it was thwarted within the same day. In the evening, it came up very early in the morning. We woke up in the morning. I think August 1st was a Sunday or a Monday morning, a Saturday morning, but I think it's more of a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning. I can't remember, but it was during the weekend. So we wake up in the morning, everybody's ringing, everybody's talking power, power, power. The students have joined in from the Nairobi University, Kenya, the mutineers or the people who went to top of the government are from the Kenya Air Force, led by Senior Sergeant Ochuka. It came to be said later that there were some people who were involved, who were from the civilians. Kina Ochuka were just supposed to do the coup, but hand over the power to civilians. It was rumored that they were supposed to hand over power to Jaramogi. As a matter of fact, it is said that people like Raila Odinga were in the scheme, because actually after that Raila was arrested. He was under jailed. He was taken to court, but I think they didn't have enough evidence, so he was actually detained. That's where now Raila comes into the picture. Raila is jailed for about 6 years. He's detained for 6 years. Detention without trial. There was that law then. Now we continue. Then because of that skirmishes, the president, Daniel Arap Moi, calls an election in 1983. That was a snap election because now because of that coup, there is a snap election 1983. Yes, 1983 there is an election, and I am also now I'm working with the ministry. I've also been awarded a scholarship now to go to Cyprus. I think I went that same year, or I went to in 84. I got a scholarship to go to Cyprus to do my postgraduate diploma in management. That's in MIM, Mediterranean Institute of Management. I am there in I think 83. And I come back in 84. Yeah, I came back in 84. When I came back, I found that the ministry had been had relocated to the cooperative house. Now I don't go back to Maendeleo house. I go back to cooperative house, the Belborom house, and we start working there. This is now like I had mentioned earlier. I think now the government is very keen on what do you call it, cementing itself. The president has been shaken, so he doesn't want to play around anymore. He now becomes he becomes very strict. He's very tough. There is also a rumor that this coup of 82 attempted coup, there is also a rumor that there was somebody who was also trying to do it. There is this Movemba, the cousin of Njonjo, was also mentioned. Then there is an inquiry. Then Njonjo is also now kind of kicked out because of there is a commission of inquiry that is set. Njonjo is implicated. Is now named the traitor. I mean, this debate came into parliament, and after the 83 election. And that's when after I think 81, 83. That's when Nani was trying to refuse that he was not being given money. Njonjo Shikuku came up with papers, showed how Njonjo was receiving money from Barclays Bank, and he was implicated, and he had to resign, and continued. Then there is now the infamous Mlolongo election. This was the climax of Moi's cartoonism, because I mean in 1988 the elections were supposed to be, you were supposed to stand behind the person who you were supporting. There was no more secret ballot. I mean, secret ballot, and now, like I said, Nani has become a one-party state. What do you call them? Nani, Kenya. Kenya is a one-party state. KANU ndio baba na mama. Sasa KANU is the baba and mama, father and mother of politics in Kenya. So whatever the president says goes, and if you don't do that, you are actually even fired. People, all the ministers used to follow the president wherever he goes, because your dismissal could be announced on the 1 o'clock bulletin on radio. I remember there is one minister, I can't mention their name now, but he was fired at the 1 o'clock news, and the driver had so the driver stopped the car. So the driver was, I think they had been given instructions. The driver, the drivers used to become bodyguards, or there'll be a bodyguard. So the driver takes the Nini, tells the minister to get off the car, and he removes the flag, and he takes the car back to State House. And now this minister had to walk to a friend or somewhere. It was a very embarrassing situation. So that was Moi for you. But then continued with his brutality, a lot of police brutality. People were very scared. You could not talk about him. If you want to say Moi, you would have to say either MO1, things like that. Because when you talk about Moi, or you mention Moi, what I'm trying to say is that out of every 4 persons, one was an informer. There were too many informers, so you didn't know who you were around. as soon as you are a crowd, as soon as the crowd gets to 4 or even 3, you are scared to talk anything against government because you don't know who will go and report. Unfortunately or fortunately, some of us who had not been that scared would talk some of these things, and maybe because we were not of any consequence, we were not arrested, but there was a lot of fear. You could not discuss the government in public or with most of the people. Everybody was just scared. Everybody was scared. You didn't know when you'll be arrested. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to let you know that the government security has been tough since those days. So when you see people being abducted now, and you think it's starting now, it's not starting now. Even those days it used to happen. I'm talking about the 80s. 88, then there's a Mlolongo election where people had to now line up. Most of the people who were not very comfortable with getting close to each other, especially if you were friends and every one of you wants a seat. You know, you don't want to know who did not vote for you or who voted for you. Some of the people opted out. Some people opted out. But anyway, it was done. People like Nani lost their seats. People like Akina... there are quite a few. We'll get into that, but I don't want to go into details. But you'd find now what was happening is you find the long line because that's a popular person was declared the loser, and the short line was declared the winner. So it was very chaotic. There was a lot of infighting, and I remember at that time is when I think somebody like Kenneth Matiba resigned. Because I think even there was a lot of infighting in all over the country anyway. But I remember after that, after the Mlolongo is where people like Akina Matiba, I think, had resigned. Things like that, people like Akina Rubia. And that's why they became very bitter, because they had been in government, now they are out. So 89, 90, they started agitating for now multi-partyism. They realized that what was hitting them now is the one-party system. Then you remember with the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1990. Now that gave everybody power to the Cold War was ended. The Americans had introduced now democracy up to even Russia. The USSR broke down. There was no more USSR. The countries like Ukraine became independent countries, and others, Belarus. So you found that now in Kenya now the American now wanted to dominate. So there was no Russia to run to. Okay, there was China, but China was not yet that powerful. So you found now and there was a very, very powerful American ambassador, Hempston now, started introducing pluralism. They used to call it pluralism. We have no more party system, not single party. Instead of single, it had to be plural. Pluralism was introduced, and there was a lot of agitation for multi-party. There were a lot of other underground movements. There was the Mwakenyas of those days. The Mwakenyas, there was other sijui nini, Liberation Front, sijui nini. There were quite a few people who had not been happy with the regime. People like I think Miguna in 1987 had already tried to disagree with Moi, and some of them had to go in exile, while others were arrested. Then there became a very, very big conversation on how the Kenya will have to be a one-party, a multi-party state. Then there was now the push for the new constitution. Raila, I think, was also released, but again he was in trouble. I think he was going to be detained again. He ran away into Norway. Actually, the people say that he went through Uganda, or he went, I think, through Uganda, and he escaped and went to Norway. People like Koigi, Wamwere, people who were very rough with the Moi had to run away because they were now, they wanted to be arrested. This period from 88 after the Mlolongo election, things were not easy for Moi. They were not easy for Kenyans either, because it was a big struggle now, a political fight. Underground movements came up, and like I told you, things like people like Namwa Kenya came up, and then there were people who were fighting very hard. Then there were people who had already been kina Njeru Kathangu, they had been detained. Peter Kinangodho, the professors. I mean, there were many people who were arrested. We will go into details of that, but I just want to show you, my point here is that arrests and abductions. Okay, then I think the government had the power. The law was allowing them, so they were not being called abductions, but you would be arrested and be detained, and then it would be legal. There was this infamous. He later became a chief justice, but he was a prosecutor. Bernard Chunga. Bernard Chunga would even take your court at night. You could even be jailed at night or Saturday or Sunday, because they would just call. There was this infamous also judge called Shields, a Mzungu judge. He was Nani's boy, Moi's judge. He could be called anytime and give a ruling according to the way the government wants. So there were a lot of detentions then. A lot of people were detained. But now the clamor for multi-partyism has come. 1989, 90 it became a bit, a lot of pushing. Kina Saba Saba now came. Then 91 they had to form the Ford. Then the Ford had to be formed. Ford was an acronym for Forum for Restoration of Democracy. Forum for the Restoration of Democracy. Ford was born, and now people became very, because they had a lot of support from foreign. Actually, that's when this term of money has been poured became very popular, because they said money had been poured, and money had been poured either the NGOs, Kina Ford Foundation. Then there was these others led by Kina Kibudha Kibwana and Kina Willy Mutunga, the NCEC. There were many bodies, many NGOs fighting. So that's when we came aware of what we call civil societies. There are a lot of these civil societies. Clamor for multi-partyism was big. But then when Ford was formed, then now everybody had to rally behind Ford. So Ford became very powerful. The six Ford people, remember, that was Jaramogi Odinga. There was Martin Shikuku. There was Masinde Muliro. There was George Ndenge. There was Philip Gashoka. Salim Bahamaris. I think those were the six. I don't know whether I've missed anybody. But like I said, there was Jaramogi. There was Shikuku. There was Ndenge. There was Bahamaris. Gashoka. I think I'm missing one person. There were six of them, and Ford became very powerful. Ford became very powerful. This is after Nani now. Nani, what is Nani? After Saba Saba, that's when Ford was formed, because Nani, Rubia, Matiba, and Raila had tried to go to to Kamukunji on Saba Saba, and that's when they were arrested. So Rubia and Matiba were arrested. Actually, that's how Matiba and Rubia were actually injured, because I think what happened when they were arrested, I think the government tortured them. I don't think they ever recovered. Actually, that is the time. From that time, they never recovered again, because the government was not kind to them. And you remember that this period again is when there was this Nyayo chambers. This is also the period of the Nyayo chambers. People used to be taken to Nyayo house and tortured. we will give you the story on that, but I just wanted to bring the story that the political climate is changing, and people have now refused single party. We have now formed Ford. Ford has become very powerful. Ford has become very powerful, and everybody's in Ford. Everybody's in Ford. Then Ford splits. Ford splits when Matiba comes back. And like, if you listen to what the Moi press secretary said, is that the split was engineered by the government, because what they did is they gave Nani a lot of power when he was in because he had been taken out after the torture. He was released. Matiba was taken out to England for medication. But when he was now coming back, people had been sent through the government machinery to tell him that people want him back to Kenya to come and lead, because Nani is too old. What is his name? Oginga is too old. Because now Oginga was like the chairman of the Ford. Oginga was the chairman. So, like I said, there was Oginga, Muliro, Ndenge, Gashoka, Bamariz, and Shikuku. So there were 6, and there was a very big meeting. There was a very big meeting in Kamukunji when when the Ford was really now enhanced. Actually, they went there, scouted, looked around, found a very good place in Kamukunji. The press was with them. Because, you know, the American embassy, like I say, Hempston was supporting him when they were very critical of Moi. So Moi decided to do his game. And like I said, he was a professor of politics. He sent some people to England. They told Matiba he was going to be very strong. Then, like I told you, the press secretary gave an interview and said that the government hired a lot of vehicles, fed a lot of people to the airport to welcome Matiba. So when the welcoming of Matiba became so huge, now there was a split. Now they were splitting the Ford and the Ford. That's where we came to Ford Kenya and Ford Asili. Ford Kenya and Ford Asili was born then. That is when there was Ford Kenya and Ford Asili, because when Matiba came now, when they sat in, they used to meet at Ajip House. Then there was a fight. Then they split. One was left in Ajip, the other one went to Modhithi in Westlands. Modhithi was Matiba's place in Westlands. So there was Ford Kenya. First it was Ford Ajip and Ford Ajip and Ford Modhithi. Then the Modhithi one became Ford Asli. That was where Nani was left. There was Ndenge, there was Gashoka, there was Shikuku, and Matiba. Matiba now came and joined in. So that became Ford Asili. And then Ford Kenya, then that is where most of the young Turks, most of them went there. Some did not fit in this other area, because the Ford Asili had the strong people, and they had told the young ones to wait for their turn, and then they didn't have to wait. But Nani welcomed them. Jaramogi and Muliro was killed. Actually, Muliro had gone to Britain. I don't know to do what. On his way back, he died on the plane. And so it was a sad time. But anyway, the elections were just around the corner, the 1992 elections. Then immediately now Kibaki comes out of KANU and he forms a Democratic Party. Now Moi becomes clever, because he has already split the Big Ford. Then he said, now for this Kikuyu to be split even further, you need to form up another party, a Kikuyu party from the Nyeri, because Matiba is Muranga. We put somebody from Nyeri though, so Nani was given money. Signed a pact with signed a pact. This was announced when Ford made a meeting at Voi. One of the members of Ford claimed that there is a pact that has been made, between Kibaki and KANU. So DP was formed. Then people like Kina John Keane and all that went to DP, went with Nani, with Kibaki. So Kibaki became another formidable party. And now Moi was a bit comfortable, and then it was, majority wins. So now there was a lot of a fight now, because there is KANU, there is Ford Kenya, and DP. So these three parties, they split the votes, the majority votes, and KANU remains with the third of the vote, 30%. KANU wins. So KANU was not trounced. KANU came back. Then in 1997, they decide they still don't agree again. They go again like separate parties. They lose again to Moi. Then that's when in 2002 now they are to now come together, because even Nani in 1997, I think 97, and Raila comes out of for Kenya after they won and they went to Parliament. Raila won in Langata seat, and his father won in Bondo. So they were father and son in Parliament. But 1994, Nani dies. Senior Jaramogi Oginga dies. And then now the party for Kenya is quite powerful. So the Raila wants to take it over. But the other people like Kijana Wamalwa tell him, no, you can't take over. Kina Paul Mwita, they were there, they were very strong. So they decided, okay, let's do an election, internal election. So Fort Kenya goes to an internal election in Thika, and Nani is trounced. Wamalwa wins, and Nani is not happy with it. What is his name? Raila. So Raila moves, and he resigns from that, and he starts his own party, National Party, and he wins again. By the way, that guy was powerful. He wins again in Langata. So he starts his party. Then he joins with KANU. He becomes KANU Secretary General. When he becomes KANU Secretary General, then they thought that Moi will give them the Nini. But the clamor for multi-partyism is so hard. So when they think that they are continuing, the clamor for multi-partyism is very serious. So there is a KANU delegates conference in Kasarani, and Moi then agrees to delete Section 2A, which had made Kenya one-party state. And a lot of people disagree. Then later he says that Nani will run, because now his 2 terms had gone, because the people had said the 2 terms. So he said that Uhuru will run. So people like Saitoti, people like Raila, who were expected to be given the seats, moved out. People like Kalonzo, they moved out. They started the LDP or something. And then they had to come and join now with Kina Kibaki, who had also joined up with the others, because they knew they might not win. It was NARC, NRK, with Kina Charity Ngilo and all that. Then they came and they formed a formidable party, NARC. So that's how now KANU got out of the seat. But it, like I told you, the split was very critical. So if this current idea of united opposition doesn't work, then Ruto will come back. Ruto will win, because although they are saying they might cause what you call a split, not a split, but they say that if the constitution now says 50+1, it's not the majority. So if the winning person or party doesn't get 50+1 votes, and I think 20% of the 24 counties, then there will be a rerun. So people are saying that even if they split, there is going to be a rerun. But it depends on how they will split. But if they unite, like I told you, if Nani had united, if Ford had not split, and Kibaki did not start a EDP, they would have won in 92, but they didn't, because they split. So politicians always like to split, and I don't know. I hope they don't, but I can just see them not agreeing. But if they agree, the better. But then again, now you see there's the Gen Z issue. So let's wait and see. But I will talk more about it. But now we will. I just wanted to bring you up to today. But you see today what happens now. The Gen Z comes. The Gen Z is a Ford of the 92, because that was a strong party. So if everybody had gone with Gen Z, then it would win. But you see now Gen Z was dismantled by the politics. You know, the intelligence is very good. That Gen Z movement has been split. I mean, it's not intact the same way Ford was not intact in 92. So I can't say the Gen Z is intact now, because it's not intact. I can see a lot of split. And that split is what the government is good at, because they will give this person money, this person money, this person. So many people will run, and the votes will be split. But the consolidated, what do you call it, votes of the ruling party will remain the same. Even if they go for the rerun, they would have disagreed during the elections. So I don't see them uniting again because of the rerun. They better agree before the rerun, because if they wait for a rerun to come and come together, I don't see them getting very far. But let's wait and see. But it's a cautionary note that the intelligence works on movements that are strong. So the Gen Z movement has been infiltrated, and that's why there is a split in everybody. You can see all these people in the opposition. Everybody wants to align themselves with the Gen Z. But the Gen Z is, like they say, they are leaderless, partyless, and tribeless. So you don't know now, because I don't know. I can see the 1992 scenario where the movement. I'm talking about the Gen Z movement, the way the Ford movement. You know, Ford was a movement. It was a national movement. They were so together, but somebody just came and infiltrated them, and they split. And like Nani said, the government was very keen it, because they gave the money. They are the ones who, came up with the scheme. So you don't know what scheme the current government is coming up with, and they must be very strong. They must be doing something very serious. And you see, it's still too early. We still have got 1 year to go. But if Nani wins the case, that's a good thing about it. If Nani wins the case, then we have got less than a year to go. If Willis wins the case, Willis is a lawyer who has taken the Constitution to court. He wants the Constitution to be interpreted by the Supreme Court and decide whether our election should be this year. I mean next year, 2026, because he says that it's the first, the second week, or the second week of August, second week of August, on the 5th year. He calculates and he tells you the 5th year is 2026. And the second week comes that time. But the government wants it to go to the 5th year, because they are trying to say that they should run for 5 years. But anyway, let's wait for the interpretation from the Supreme Court. I don't know why there is so much delay, because by now we should by known. Maybe they just want to take everybody by surprise. But the judiciary, the Supreme Court, should by now be able to tell us, because the matter has been given to them. So let them interpret. We want an interpretation of the Constitution. What does it say? Second week of August, in the 5th year of the government. So we don't know, but we are waiting. Thank you very much. We'll continue later.